Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome into STL Soccer Central here on STL Sports Central. And we are live from the Key STL in Midtown, 3225 Olive Street, just down the street from Shavitz Arena, and heck, just up the street from Energizer Park up Olive in Midtown. And I am joined today by our special guest. It is Matt Baker, one of the hosts for Flyover Footy. You can check him out at Flyover Footy. You can check him out at Matt Baker STL. Baker, thank you so much for joining us today.
Happy to be here, Rocchio. What better time to join you than a U.S. men's national team match where we could clinch group stage?
How about that? Yeah, you got Mexico clinching their group stage yesterday with their big win. And obviously, we're going to be talking plenty about the World Cup, the United States and Australia coming up in their second group stage match in just a little bit over an hour. And we've got some news for this United States match. Christian Pulisic, not just nursing the injury, he's full on out, won't even be coming off the bench for the United States. We saw how important he was on the width against Paraguay. What are your first reactions here to knowing it's no Pulisic against the Socceroos today?
First reaction is a little bit expected. He hasn't been a full participant in training. He hasn't really trained at all with the men's national team this week, and so it's not a stretch. It's not a surprise. It's almost everything that we thought would happen. The surprise in this one is who's taking his place. Ricardo Pepi becomes a starting 11 nod for Mauricio Pochettino's team, and this changes the dynamic of the team a little more intensely than otherwise thought, where you wondered, are we going to see a Sebastian Berhalter pop in? Is it going to be a little more plug and play for a Malik Tillman to move up into the attack? And we get none of that. We get a two-striker approach. That's the most interesting thing to me. The loss of Pulisic is going to be felt throughout this game. There's nobody who can single-handedly change the game, change the dynamic more than Christian, and to lose him is a big loss. But I think the depth of this team is going to show that they have enough to overcome that, and it's an interesting matchup to lose Pulisic as well. Australia coming off this 2-0 win against Turkey.
Yeah, that was big for them.
They're not an attacking-minded team.
Nope.
So the way that the U.S. men's national team is going to have to approach this is going to be breaking down this low block, and that's really where Pulisic was going to come in handy. His creativity, his dynamism, the way he can affect the match in and of himself is going to be felt. And so without him, you wonder, what are they going to do to get the ball up to Ricardo Pepi? What are they going to do to engage Flair and Balogun a little more intensely? And are they going to rely on Weston McKennie as that creative playmaker?
That's what I was just about to say. Like, we can't forget, there is another attacking offensive player on the United States men's national team roster who is a star for a Serie A team.
Yes.
It's not just Christian Pulisic up there in Milan. Weston McKennie's done a lot of incredible things, really becoming that offensive player for Juventus over the last few years. Is this the game where they do have to lean on him, especially not just when you talk about going from one star to another, but what we were just talking about, when you don't have the width anymore and you have to dominate centrally, the play of a guy like Weston McKennie is going to be pretty important.
Well, and that's where his role changes with this as well, because in the game against Paraguay, you saw Weston McKennie drop back a little into defense and to help be that outlet and the initiator of the offense.
That's how I predicted he was going to play in this World Cup 10 years ago.
And he did well. He did everything you wanted him to, but they can't afford to do that in this match. I don't think they're going to be able to have the luxury to drop him back as deep as they were. They're going to rely on Chris Richards, Alex Freeman, Tyler Adams to be those playmakers deep, because he's going to be needed in the attack a whole lot more.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Like you said, Australia not really playing a natural game, very wide open. They never really have, even since the days of Cahill up top. And also, when you look at just how this World Cup's going, you get that first win, all you're thinking about is protecting your goal and not getting beat in your next two games. We'll talk a little bit about the other groups and how some of these draws are working out. But just when you look at this group right now, if you're Australia, you got your 3 points. You get one more in one of the draw here, you're sitting pretty worst case scenario as a third place team.
And that's why this is going to be a frustrating game. I have a sense that if the U.S. national team can't get out in front early, it's going to be a slog. It's going to be a wearing them down match. And it's going to be frustrating because I think they're going to drop back to that 5-4-1 really deep, just looking for their opportunity to hit on the counter. And so it's going to be up to the U.S. to pull them out of their formation. It's going to be up to Serginho Dest, to Jedi Robinson to provide that width, because it's not going to, the interplay is not going to be there with Pulisic on the left. You're going to need Weston McKennie and Serginho Dest to do that on the right to really force them out of their formation. And Australia is good. They are a tight-knit team. They're good, cohesively defensive. And when you have a team like that who doesn't need to pull out the win in this game to move on, you're fighting against yourself and them in a lot of ways. What you want to do is clinch and move on, because for the U.S., it is a massive difference to win group versus finish second. And Turkey underperformed against Australia in that first match. What we saw against them, I think they're going to be even more hungry in that third game. So yes, it's a big loss to have Pulisic not in the lineup, but the U.S. needs to win this match to secure that group stage win in what it means for them going forward. This isn't, I said it on social media, this isn't the biggest game in the U.S. men's national team history, Matt, but it is the biggest stepping stone game to what could be the biggest World Cup of all time.
Here's the thing, though. When you talk about the potential matchups right now, if everything holds as it is now, and very small chance that would happen, but if they were to finish second, they would play Iran on July 3rd. Right now, it's bending that they're going to play. Right now, Bosnia-Herzegovina on July 2nd is the current match that the United States has as everything stands right now. So there's a little part of me that says, I don't know, finishing second could be pretty fun for the storylines, but you want to win your group. It should bake out that you get an easier road to the round of 16 through the round of 32 if you're finishing first as opposed to second or third.
And in general, you want to control your own destiny.
That's true.
Right? You don't want to have to rely on all these teams to falter, because we're going to talk about it in a minute, I'm sure, but this first round of the World Cup group stage has been fascinating to see what the impact of the rise to 48 teams has been, how teams have approached each other, what they're looking to do, because you don't need to finish first or second anymore. And when you have those third place teams able to move on, then those types of teams become a lot more dangerous in what they're not willing to give up. They don't need wins. They just need to pull out a shock like Australia's already done, and then they need to just draw out, and it's enough for them. Yeah,
Australia's a little bit different because they controlled that game against Turkey a lot more than we expected. When you have guys like Arda Güler for Turkey, you expect them to be able to control the ball. A little bit different when Australia is able to do that. We'll talk about the draws here in a moment. You mentioned this Australia-USA game being a little bit of a slog. Well, if it's not the game that's going to get you here, then this is all you need to get down to the Key STL 3225 Olive Street, because if you are in attendance for Australia versus the United States today here at the Key, you are eligible to win this Berkey signed All-Star poster. You can see the plastic that's around it. It means it's never been touched by human hands. I'm not muddying it up right here. There's a nice protective film there that's giving us all those glares. So that's how you win that signed Berkey All-Star poster. You get down here to the Key STL 3225 Olive Street. Still plenty of time before the kickoff begins for you to be eligible to win that. Let's keep talking about the World Cup. We just mentioned it. There have been some wild endings, some wild results so far. Just the draws that we've been looking at: Portugal versus Democratic Republic of Congo, Spain versus Cabo Verde, Belgium and Egypt, Uruguay and Saudi Arabia. Where's the other one? Qatar and Switzerland, Brazil, Monaco, Canada, Bosnia-Herzegovina. So we've had a bunch of really random draws that have kind of set the table for some odd round 2 and round 3s in this group stage. Which one of those draws has jumped out to you the most?
For different reasons, the Spain match sticks out, obviously.
What was it, 27-6 on the shots?
Yeah, it was
absolutely ridiculous.
Spain did everything they needed to do except for put the ball in the net. Yep. And how many times have we heard that as St. Louis fans?
Yeah, right.
Spain being unable to do that speaks more to Cape Verde than it does for Spain, because I'm still not down on Spain. I think when they get their top playmakers back for the later rounds in group stage and beyond, they're going to be a force.
From the get-go, by the way, not coming off the bench.
Right, exactly. When you're able to leverage those kind of guys for 90 minutes. So I'm not worried about Spain, but it's a really interesting result, and it speaks to the fact that you have those teams that they know they don't need to win.
They're going to stick 10 in front of the goal, and they're going to try to go 0-0 or 1-1.
And they had their own moments.
Yeah, that's true.
And all you need to do to be a third place team to move on, really in general, is to get 4 points. 4 points moves you on by and large. And so if you can steal a win,
and 4 points almost guarantees you a second place finish. A lot of times you get 2 or 3, and you're looking at third place and moving on. 4, you're skating by easy. Second place in almost every group.
Easy, and that's why Cape Verde is going to be so dangerous going forward, is they have their 1, they just need to steal 3. But for Spain, I'm not worried about them. The one team I'm really kind of worried about or interested in watching, because I'm not a fan of them, is Portugal.
Yep.
Portugal, my goodness, if you haven't seen the memes going around of Cristiano Ronaldo, Bruno Fernandes, this is a team that does not seem to be cohesive, and they're centering themselves around a player that nobody seems to like.
It was so odd in the lead up to the World Cup, seeing people talk about Cristiano Ronaldo the way they were. And I thought that was an insane feeling. Watching it play out exactly like everyone predicted, and that he undoubtedly is holding back the Portugal side from being a better overall team right now. Like, that is an undoubtable fact. If you watch them for 20 minutes or so, you cannot come away with anything other than, Ronaldo is not improving this team. And I dare say it's pretty easy to say Ronaldo is hurting Portugal right now.
Well, they're not giving him the chance. Like, they don't want to trust him. They don't like to give him the ball. They're purposefully creating chances that don't involve him.
He's calling for his own teammate to be offsides.
Right. He's doing what it needs to do for himself. Thierry Henry, one of my favorite players of all time, had the right analysis. He's in it for himself scoring goals, not for the team to score goals. And it feels like the rest of Portugal is feeding off of that energy, where they're not wanting to give him the opportunity or the glory, even if it's at the expense of their team. And when you have those two dynamics at play, the selfishness and the lack of trusting or wanting to give glory to a single player, it adds up to this kind of result where you're at risk of not moving on. And that's a team that this is a match where I could see that carrying forward and being a huge hindrance. As these matches go on, I'm of the opinion that if you have a good defensive structure, but you have a player who can be the focal point, like we've seen so many times, we'll talk about, who you can count on for a brace, you can count on for a hat trick, you can count on to get the ball in the net. If you have that, it can overcome a lot of things if you're defensively structured. Portugal has that player on their roster, but they're not wanting to leverage him, and that's insane to me.
And part of it, I think you're right, is they're not getting him involved. But, I mean, there were parts of that game where, I mean, he was, I think Taylor Twellman said, statuesque, where he just isn't moving, he's not making the runs. No. And so everything we just said, he's not moving, he's not making the runs. Those things, or at least the not moving part, those things could also be said for another aging superstar in this World Cup. Everything else we've said since the beginning of this part of this discussion does not apply, though, and that is Lionel Messi, because you talk about a guy who incorporated into the team, was active, still stood around for long periods of the game, but did make the runs as he always does in the crucial moment. It's just insane considering that back in the 2018 World Cup, or 2022 World Cup, I should say, was after 2018 when Argentina got eliminated. People were making the calls. But in 2022, everyone was pretty much saying this is probably the last we see of Messi and Ronaldo in the World Cup. 4 years later, completely different stories so far.
They're still saying it's the last time we're going to see it.
Yeah, probably.
It might have a little more credibility at this point.
At least for half of them.
The difference between Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo is how their team views them.
Yeah.
Because Lionel Messi scored a goal because he didn't move. What he was doing was allowing everything else to move around him, and he was letting the defense forget about him. And by forgetting about him, he's opening up space on his own. His teammates are doing what's needed to create space, pulling defenses away from him just by standing there. All they need to do then is allow him to receive the ball, either passes or a recovery, and he's off and running. Scored a goal single-handedly by being left alone in space, taking 3 dribbles and then shooting from the outside the box. That's the player that Messi is like that. Ronaldo's like that too, but Messi's almost like that because he has the trust and reliability of his teammates. They're willing to do the work.
He also has patience.
He has
I don't think Ronaldo has patience. I think Ronaldo gets to the point where he's like, why have you not whipped 4 crosses into the box for me to go get ahead of?
Knows he's going to get it.
Or just the look on his face when they took the free kick without him. Yeah. Like he's standing behind the play thinking, I'm going to take this free kick. And I think it was Bruno Fernandes and then one other player who were just like, no, we're figuring out how we're going to do this. Yeah. We don't need you. And it does seem like it's more on the team for not getting involved, but that has to come from somewhere. Like these guys didn't lose faith in a guy who stormed them through that Euros run. They didn't lose faith in him in the last 6 months. This is something that's been going long term.
You play how you train. Yeah. And so there has to be something that happens ahead of time. It's the constant story that we all know, again, as St. Louis fans, that the result in the game is a result of what happens in training. And so the trust is lost off the field. It's not lost on the field. And I think that's what we're seeing from Portugal.
We talked about the expanded tournament, changing things around. This is my 5th. I saw 5 World Cups with the 32 team grouping or 36 team grouping as it was. They've now added a bunch. We've gone up to 48. Your reactions just to what you've seen right now in the World Cup? Has it felt different than the previous ones we've watched?
I think it's felt more exciting to me.
Has it? Okay.
So you have a combination of the action on the field, which has been stellar,
fantastic.
But you also have the storylines that I don't think would have they wouldn't have produced to the extent that we're seeing. You wouldn't have a 40-year-old goalkeeper who goes from 50,000 social media followers to 10 million.
And that was the Cabo Verde goalkeeper, 40 years old, Vizinho, I think his name is.
Vizinho, exactly. You have these storylines that are making Cinderella stories so much more prevalent, and those are always fun. This is the opportunity to get those. You don't expect those to go too far, but while they're happening, that just makes for entertaining soccer. And I think that's an element that the World Cup hasn't had to this extent. And so I like the 48 teams. I think there are some obvious teams that you look at the fact that some of these teams would have qualified regardless, like Qatar.
Yeah.
Qatar would have qualified, and they just got shut out. They got blown out by Canada.
Yeah, I don't know what everyone else is doing in the Asian Cup.
But the fact that you're pointing to some of these teams that qualified and they're questionable versus some of the teams like Uzbekistan or Capo Verde that made it because of the increase to 48 teams, yet they're performing a little bit more than you would have expected to. So I think there's a good mix. None of it, to me, points to the World Cup being diminished because it's risen to 48 teams.
No, I mean, the storylines are always there. You're always going to have, a section of the World Cup that is overtaken by the bad tactics of all we need to do here is just get a draw. And previously in the World Cup, it was a team would leg their way through the group stage. They'd get by with 3 points, and they'd get to the round of 16. And that round of 16 knockout game was one of the worst games of soccer you would ever watch in your entire life, because they would not touch the ball. All they were doing was playing for penalty kicks because they knew that's the only way we're going to win. So it's an unavoidable thing once you get past a certain size of the World Cup. And I do think the World Cup is better when you get more people involved, you get more teams involved, you get more storylines involved. And to that point, I know we already talked about some of the big draws. You've been tweeting out at Matt Baker STL pretty much all of the big moments of the Cup as you've been following them. Just what are some of the biggest things that have jumped out to you that have made this such an exciting World Cup? We already got the Messi hat trick in there. We got, again,
the
Cabo Verde.
The braces too. So
all the first-time players too.
Yes, first-time players, superstars, that you could correlate that to the level of competition. Maybe they're having more success. You had Jonathan David score a hat trick against Qatar. But again, they would have qualified.
Yeah, Balogun in his World Cup debut, Erling Haaland in his World Cup debut put up a brace.
The day or two where you had Haaland, you had Harry Kane, and Mbappe.
That's another one.
All these superstars are showing themselves, and it's good entertaining soccer. Like, that's ultimately what you want. You want the competition to be there, and I think it is, because you're getting a lot of these matches that are going into where you're seeing 90+5 goals. And
how about that Ghana goal?
The Ghana goal.
Oh my gosh, that's one of those games where it's stupid, and we enjoy soccer, so we don't need to be people complaining about it. But as somebody who grew up pretty much through 17 or 18 and still probably had that mindset of, oh, soccer's boring, there's not enough scoring and things like that. Man, Panama. Panama. I was blanking on who their opponent was.
Yeah, Panama.
Panama is a perfect example of why you don't need high scoring lines in soccer for it to be a fascinating 2 hours, because every one of those moments felt like you were on the precipice of somebody scoring, and it didn't happen until 90 plus. That was a perfect game, a great example of you don't need the high scores to have a fantastic game.
Well, and you have that, and then you have the opposite with Spain, Cape Verde, where you had Spain dominating the entire time, and you're just rooting for them to hold on for dear life. So you're getting different dynamics in these 0-0 draws. But it's ultimately, I've seen so many comments of people saying, I understand now why 0-0 draws can be exciting to watch. And that's a benefit when you're converting people into the soccer philosophy of you got to watch what happens between the lines, because it can be as exciting as watching goals. I think games don't have to be goal fest in order for them to be exciting. That's one thing that I think this World Cup is delivering in spades, on top of all the off the field action. Everything we're seeing on social media, not to take the action away from on the field for a second, but all of the stuff that's happening off the field in America, especially, and I'm sure Canada and Mexico have their own flares to it, but it is creating an atmosphere, creating a level of excitement that you just have in your mind. This is an event as these games are going on. So you have this Ghana Panama type game where it's 0-0, and you're almost invested before you start.
Yep.
And I think that's one of the big takeaways that we're going to have from this World Cup, is just how it's reaching the zeitgeist of all, like, it's breaking through soccer. It's reaching beyond sports even to the culture of different cities across America. And it's causing people to be invested into these matchups where you don't have goal scorers all over the place. And that is a big impact. You can have 0-0, 1-1 draws between either powerhouses like Brazil, Morocco, or between the Ghana and the Panamas. And it's all exciting nonetheless. I
also need to go ahead and put out an apology that's very many years old. And I need to apologize to the 2010s era Spain, because for as much as I made fun of them for being the most boring version of soccer to watch, as they won everything, at no point did that tiki-taka group put up that kind of display and actually never score a goal.
Yeah.
Because at least tiki-taka, they'd be boring for 90 minutes, but they'd at least put one in the back of the net. So my apologies to that incredible era of Spanish football. Obviously, I know they need to hear it. Speaking of how things currently stand, I just wanted to throw this out. Round of 32 matches, if everything stays as it is now, Germany and Brazil would be facing off again in a round of 32. If everyone remembers the 7-0 drubbing on home soil that for a lot of people ended a era of Brazilian football and has kind of brought on what we have now, which is more of a malaise of Brazilian football.
It is.
It's been bad since then.
7-1, and the fact that the Curacao had that same result against Germany. Curacao and Brazil now have a kindred spirit.
This is incredible, by the way. That 7-1 game, Brazil and Germany. I found out when I was listening to, I think it was the TIFO podcast, which is a fantastic podcast through The Athletic, and they pointed out that for years, if you were in Brazil, it became a thing where when something bad happened, the response to it would be, and Germany scores again.
Yep.
Like you get in a car accident, instead of saying, oh, hell, or cursing, you go, and Germany scores again. Like that's how much that penetrated. You talk about zeitgeist.
Oh, yeah.
That's how much that penetrated the Brazilian zeitgeist, is that it became a curse word, essentially.
Hurt the soul of a country.
Hurt the soul of a country. It's a great point. United States right now would face off against Bosnia in the round of 32. Obviously, we here in St. Louis know that would be an incredible match. The Bosnian fans are out everywhere. Of course, there's a huge amount of them who have a lot of ties to the United States living here. I think that would be a fascinating match.
I think they open up Energizer Park.
You have to.
That would break St. Louis.
Yes.
And the support on the streets downtown in the county, it would be insane for us to see that, because I can tell you, driving up here to the Key, there are people all over the place. The watch parties happening. Amsterdam's full. Ultra Club's full. All the bars are all over the place full. So to have U.S. against Bosnia, that would break things.
We are here at the Key STL, as Matt says, just down the street from Chaffetz Arena, 3225 Olive Street here in Midtown. It's a great place. TVs all over the place. They're going to have the sound up here with the games once those get started. Once we finish off, the food's incredible. The smash burgers are amazing. The fries are some of the best in St. Louis. Get the garlic aioli. Trust me on that one. Also, if you're not in a burger crowd, go with the shrimp tacos. They got a really good salsa verde here at the Key STL. It's been fantastic. One of my favorite things about the World Cup is insane history connections and insane geopolitical connections.
Oh, yeah.
So first of all, you responded to it. One of the best tweets we've seen so far. The Scotland fans joined in on Norway rowing, and somebody goes, "You fools! Don't you realize what they're rowing towards?" Fantastic historical shout out there.
Epic.
Speaking of which, current round of 32 pairings. France versus the Ivory Coast. The Ivory Coast, of course, a French colony for a few hundred years. I love it when the colonies and the former colonial oppressors face off against each other in the game. It's absolutely fantastic. There is a small chance England and the United States could face off in the round of 32 as well.
On July 4th.
Yeah, that's the craziest thing, is right now it could be the second, it could be the third, but July 4th is a potential matchup. And I believe that one is, I believe it's over on the Eastern Seaboard. I think it's I don't think it's in Philadelphia. I think it's somewhere on the Eastern Seaboard. Up north, so it is very kind of American Revolution. Yeah, it might be in Boston. That's what it is. I don't know why I was thinking Philly.
Of all the imperialism and colonialism type matchups, you got your small for the France, you've got your large for the England. I mean, it's
Spain and Mexico it would be the matchup right now if everything stays clean.
It doesn't get any better than that.
It does, because even better than colonial issues over history is literal geopolitical border issues. Right now, Ecuador and Colombia would be a round of 32 matchup there in Northern South America. I think that's my favorite part about the World Cup.
Current state.
You never. I don't care as much about the soccer. I'm here for geopolitical ramifications of sports on an international stage,
because this impacts that. You talked about Brazil's PTSD about Germany.
It's hilarious to me.
Think about how that can impact certain things. I mean, I
wouldn't want to live on that border.
No, we talk about U.S.-Mexico all the time and what that has and how that continues to push the envelope. These countries are that, I would argue, in a lot of ways, magnified times 10 in what it means locally to them. It doesn't get the national or the international recognition to us, but those are impactful. And so to see that happen, you know what it means to their fan bases and to their citizens, honestly.
Last thing here on the World Cup before we talk a little city before Matt heads out and we get started with this United States-Australia matchup. I feel like we probably could have adopted a lot of American things for this World Cup, and people would be less pissed off than the ad breaks that have turned it into a 4-quarter sport. Obviously, the Europeans are quite miffed. They don't have to watch a lot of it unless they're here in the States because the other broadcasters aren't showing commercials. But nonetheless, the hydration breaks are there even when the game's inside. The hydration breaks are there even when the game's not even that hot. And we have essentially been playing a tournament full of 4-quarter soccer. What are your thoughts on that so far?
Awful. Abject failure. I think it's a disaster and an embarrassment for FIFA to allow this. Where the early... So first of all, Fox set the stage for a disaster and a PR nightmare.
The very first
match for Mexico, and they missed the resumption of play in the second quarter.
Can't happen.
In the first half.
Can't happen.
A disaster. So it's a laughing stock at this point. But also, there's multiple layers to why it's terrible. First of all, it's not needed. And I had the thought at the beginning of the World Cup, and I said this on Flyover Footy, that before the World Cup, it seemed like it had potential. So you're standardizing everything, right? You're evening the playing field.
Yep.
But now you're seeing that in play, it's just embarrassing to stop when you don't need to stop because you're still having stoppage time.
Yep.
Right. And what that means is by having an automatic 3 minutes of stoppage time, you're continuing things unnecessarily. So you're progressing play when you don't need to, but taking it back to the actual match break or hydration break, whatever they're calling it now, you're taking the momentum out of the play. So that is directly impacting on the field.
Here's the counteract, though. It is directly interacting on the field. I would say it's fair to say that there's a much better chance that Spain wins 1-0 against Cabo Verde if they don't have that potential obstacle in their momentum, and it gives Curacao another chance to say, okay, what are they doing? How are they trying to break down our deep block? Let's take a look at the aerial photos. Like, it is giving teams a different strategic way to go through it. It's not
but is that good
classic.
Or is that bad?
It's not good. It might not be bad. I just know it is, and it is leading to some more entertaining games.
I could see the argument for sure. The tactical changes that are allowed to be made, I think that's what you're going to see as this World Cup progresses.
Yes.
I don't think teams understood the importance of what that would offer. And
the U.S. did.
The U.S. did. I think they saw it coming. Well, I mean, the U.S. with commercial breaks, they know how this works.
Exactly.
We can manage around this. But I think as you progress, you're going to see that being, especially during the restarts, you're going to see changes and in some ways seismic changes in the round of 32, 16, the quarters, as teams start to get better and better at managing these hydration breaks. They know what to expect now. So into the second round and third round of group stages, I expect to see that to be a little bit of a difference maker in and of itself, as teams can better approach their tactical changes and get data to their teams in a quicker, more dynamic way. But in general, I just hate the concept. Yeah. I hate the ability for teams to make those kind of adjustments with a timeout halfway through each half. I think it diminishes what soccer offers as a difference maker to other sports, especially United States sports in the US. And it's unnecessary to implement it across the board. If you're going to say it's for player health and safety, make it for player health and safety when it's required. Otherwise, call a spade a spade.
Which they did. The Brazil World Cup was the first one with the hydration breaks.
Yeah.
But only some games had them.
Right.
The games where it was above and they set a temperature mark. They said if the game kicks off at above this temperature or hits this temperature during the game, hydration breaks. If it doesn't, we're just playing 90 like we always do.
And that's part of the beauty of soccer.
Sense.
It's part of the beauty of soccer is you're not making it a timeout for everyone who doesn't need it, because it's no longer a hydration break. It's no longer
it's timeout.
Safety. And you talk about what Fox is now generating in revenue. There's no going back. That's the really frustrating part, is when you see hundreds of millions of dollars being generated from this, they're not going to turn that down.
I think we could have forced the run-up penalty kick into this tournament, and Europeans would be less miffed by it than this.
If they knew what the comparison was,
you
can have this or that.
That's a good point. You'd have to give them the comparison.
They'll think goalie wars over this, I'm sure.
I'd love goalie wars again. Let's please do that. Before we move on here to a little St. Louis City SC talk, we'll close it out here with a little prediction. If you are just joining us now, the news: Christian Pulisic is out for today's game against Australia. Ricardo Pepe is in the lineup for the United States men's national team. What's your prediction for this one?
I've got a 2-0 U.S. win, and I think it takes about 80-85 to get that second goal. I think
that's okay. I was going to ask, if you see 2-0, I'm assuming that first one comes not in a fluky way, but comes in a more unexpected way in like the first 20 minutes.
I don't think it comes in the run of play.
I
think we get a set piece goal of some kind. I don't see us breaking down Australia in the run of play to start the scoring. I think we'll get something generated from a foul or some free kick opportunity. Basically a set piece of some kind. I think Australia's defense is too compact. They're too cohesive, and they know exactly how to prevent their side from being broken down. For the U.S., the key is going to be preventing the counter. It's almost as straightforward as that, where you're going to rely on your center backs, you're going to rely on Tyler Adams, and it might end up relying on one of Serginho Dest or Jedi Robinson to stay back in those wide areas to help out. And I think that's going to be a big difference maker in how our attack looks, knowing that we want to be preventing the counter attack. It's how we're able to prevent that. Are we doing it by pinning Australia so far back, keeping those numbers high, and then knowing that if we turn the ball over and Australia ends up on the counter, it's going to take them 3, 4, 5 passes to actually make a meaningful break. I think that's a better proactive defensive approach. It's the best defense is a good offense kind of mentality. That's a better approach, and I see us doing that to start versus keeping a fullback back deep by default. And I think that offers the opportunity to get out in front early. So if we do end up scoring early in the run of play, I think it's because we'll have stuck to our guns and kept numbers high.
There you go. Plus 168 right now is what you can get the U.S. to score 1.5 plus goals. So if they're going to score those 2 goals, like Matt says, plus 168, you can get it right now if you're doing a little wagering on the World Cup. We're going to move through. We're going to talk a little bit of St. Louis City SC. Again, you're listening to STL Soccer Central live from the Key STL, 3225 Olive Street. We're doing a USA and Australia watch party here today. And if you want to win this signed Berkey All-Star poster, that's how you can win it. You got to get down here for the Key STL watch party for the US and Australia game. If they are up 2-0, we'll call it there. But until then, you got to stay and you got to watch this game here at the Key STL. Great food, great drinks, and they got TVs, not cameras. They got camera right here, but they got TVs all over the place so you can watch the game as well. Let's talk a little bit about St. Louis City SC. I got a chance to catch up with Yohan DeMay this past weekend at a City Futures tournament where they allowed us to talk to Yohan. He was doing a little coaching of the youngins out there. The media at large was able to meet with Yohan on Thursday, and both days one thing that came out was he kept talking about the foundation that they built the first chunk of the season, the foundation. What have they built in the foundation? What can they build on it from there? Your perspective, this first half of the season, what is that foundation and how, I guess, how positive are you about what they've built so far?
Extremely positive, first and foremost. The foundation is you take care of the ball and you recover it as quick as possible, but you do so cohesively with the teammates that are closest to you. You create the traps. You're smart with your passing. You're patient.
What's French for tiki-taka?
It's a good question. Whatever it is, I'm sure it goes through DeMay's dreams at night because he loves to do it. And Timo Baumgartel, who just got his green card, that's a good example of patience and how he can lead this team and what he looks for. He looks for openings. He looks for that first pass. And if it's not there, they're going to pass it back. And it's not the old school pass it back and wait again and horizontal passes. They're going to find their time to strike, and they're going to strike quick. And I think all these foundations, these principles that Yohan DeMay has laid has allowed the players to become more comfortable about each other. It's not trusting yourself and your skills. It's trusting those around you.
I love that.
So knowing that if you're a Timo Baumgartel playing it up to a Dante Polvera on the left or the right, Polvera knows exactly where his wingers, where his central midfielders are going to be able to progress. And having that, and that might be, I think, Matt, why it took so long for this to develop from February on to May. When May, this team really started to pick up momentum. And it takes a long time to do that because you're not just needing yourself, you're needing that cohesion. And it's why we saw the consistency in the 11. By the
way, it's the only, if they're going to be a playoff team, that's also the only way you can coach this team to be a playoff team, because definitionally this team has to be better than the total glut of their talent, because that talent level probably isn't
individually
top 9 individually added up. You have to be greater than the sum of your parts. And that's honestly, when I look at a manager or a head coach, that's 90% of what I expect their job to be, is make the players you have as a group better than anybody else could.
Kind of like a designated team.
There you go. I like that. Okay. Here we go.
But in this version of a designated team, you can actually play with the ball. You're comfortable with it.
Yes.
You're okay possessing it, and you're stringing together passes.
And you're still keeping a high line.
You are still, and that's the other aspect. That's the other foundation.
Still fun.
The press is still foundational to this team's identity, but it's a different press.
Yeah.
It's intelligent. It's pinching. It's not all out pressing the center backs in their defensive third. It's waiting for them to make a move and then pouncing.
Absolutely, it is. You mentioned 2 things there. One thing, you talked about how it is a forward progression. Something I have seen City fans complain about is the amount of sideways and backwards passes they see from St. Louis City SC. And here's my thing: if you watched the United States men's national team last week, and if you watched that Serginho Dest My apologies. Gio Reyna. I'm just thinking of the most talented players on the team. And you watch that Gio Reyna goal.
Oh, yeah.
People were posting videos of the passing progression.
28 or so.
Yeah, yeah. It was, I think it might have been the 26 that got on that Reyna. That's the number I had in my head. Either way, high 20s in the passes. But if you watch that clip slowly, the thing that we always talk about is progressive passes. Do you move the ball 10 yards from where you have it forwards towards the goal? And usually I like to do the hardcore version, which is only count ones in the offensive half.
Sure.
So if you do the hardcore version, I think there's 4 progressive passes out of 26 to 28 passes. There's only 4. That thing that we talk about is this is how you move the ball forward. Yes. And I think too many times we get caught up in a very classic kind of, St. Louis, an American way to look at soccer, which is like, I don't pass the ball backwards, push forward. What are you doing moving the ball backwards? The net's over there. That kind of mindset gets in there. But when you see the actual progression of the ball and why and how, everyone plays high lines now. Like playing a high line is no longer a thing that gegenpressing or or the most talented tiki-taka teams do. It is the norm of what everyone in the world does. So if everyone in the world is going to play a higher line, then naturally the idea of let them come to you and then hit them on the other side is going to be something that naturally takes over. And that's exactly what the United States did there. And that's exactly what City is constantly trying to do. Why is there backwards passing? Why is there side passing? Because you're trying to get teams to step up out of areas and then hit them in those areas on the other side. We can argue of whether or not City's been good enough in hitting them in those areas, especially with some of the wingback play this year. But too often I think people focus on, are they going forward? This isn't a team that's playing boring or staid or wants to win 1-0. They're trying to open things up. It's just that right now that's been held back by the talent level and the play of some players who are not playing as well as they should. Conrad Vallum being one of the biggest ones there. It's just it's a complaint I see so much, and I understand in the moment why you can say, oh, why are we passing backwards there? But when you look at the grand scheme of things, this team plays forward. This team does play a fun brand of football.
Well, that's why it took so long, I think, for this team to get going. When you watch matches for City between February and April, by and large, teams are letting them move the ball up the field.
Yes.
They're forcing St. Louis. We know St. Louis City. St. Louis City can't beat us on the dribble.
Yeah.
And so they were making us make the first move, making us prove that we were capable of that. And it took a little while, along with what defenses were doing, not pressing into the center backs, allowing us to get up to midfield and causing all that congestion in the middle third, especially. But once we showed that we could actually break that midline press, then teams started to approach us differently. And that's why May kind of opened things up a little bit. And I think that's what we're going to look for in the back half of the season is teams now have a little more tape. They know the capabilities of the players that we have in our midfield and our back line and our ability to break some presses and to connect some passes and what Durkin and Edelman can do together in playing the ball off in almost a tiki-taka form because neither of them are good on the dribble or turning into half spaces. But what they're able to do is to ping the ball over to our wingers and progress it in that manner. We can beat a compact mid block now, and we've proven it a little bit. And so I expect teams to play St. Louis a little differently, not just how they were in the first part of the season. And that opens things up for St. Louis. When you can actually force a defense to alter what they're trying to do with you, it makes you more than one-dimensional. And that's what St. Louis has been lacking for years now, is a multi-dimensional approach to their attack because they're capable of so much on the ball.
I don't know about you, but when I heard the Paraguay coach describe the United States playing that pentagon, I was like, that's got to be something Yohan is running with it. Yes. I want to see more from the midfield. And I guess that's my big question here is you just mentioned, can you force the defense to change? Yohan always talks about how the team takes what the defense gives them.
Yep.
We with the Pentagon in the midfield, with what we talked about before the season, all the talk was about them playing up the middle. And then almost every game, it's been a lot of wide play because they're simply taking what defenses give them. Do you see that as the big hurdle for this team in the second half, is going from a team that has to always just take what the defense gives them and work the ball in those areas versus a team that can then dictate what they want to do against defenses?
Well, that's why you need a continued evolution of the player that you have available. You need Corey Ray to come through with who he's signing to improve. and that's really where the difference is going to come. I don't see Durkin and Edelman showing us too much more than what we saw at the beginning of the season. They are who they are, and they are capable of connecting the lines in a certain way, but they're not capable of affecting the entire game and affecting change in the game themselves singularly. Now, if we dropped Edu back to central midfield,
it's completely different.
It's completely different. But I think the work that Ray is going to be doing in this summer will be hugely indicative of where he sees the biggest gaps in that, in abilities to affect different changes in phases of play. And whether it's just the pure striker that we know we need, or the attacking midfielder, the central midfielder, or one of the wingers, where we choose to elevate our game will show, I think, where we look to enhance how the balls move through.
You spoke earlier about the Timo Baumgartel. He got his green card. He comes off the international list, if you will, for the United States. I need a little Matt Baker roster guru here for the last few minutes. Seti, Cordova, and Yaro all come off of the roster. Two of those with loans expiring, one of them going out on a loan in Josh Yaro. You open up an international spot with Baumgartel getting the green card. Where does the City roster stand? How much room does Ray have to work with?
A lot of room. Prior to Josh Yaro was on the supplemental roster. So we have one supplemental slot. I believe we had 4 or 5 senior slots, but most importantly, we have a DP slot available and a U22
or U22, yes.
So there's flexibility on the roster construction model, which tells you how you can put the team together, DP or U22 wise. So that's the high level players you have available. That slot's there, but also by letting Seti go and Cordova go, you free up TAM. That's the other biggest thing is the team's not built on your DPs and your U22s alone. It's built on those next level players, the targeted allocation monies where you're paying them above the maximum salary, but below that DP threshold, that $1 million difference.
I'd argue looking at a roster's TAM level players is the best way to see
there's a correlation,
the quality there, because DPs can be such a
hit or miss.
It's such a crap shot.
Yeah.
And you have teams that just have designated players who have never impacted the team and are just sitting there with huge price tags. But TAM players, it seems to be, they're easier to churn and burn, so if they don't work out, you can get rid of them easier. And therefore, I think the quality of your TAM players is a much more indicative size of like how good is your actual roster.
It is, and there was so many times earlier in the season where you look at our top 8 highest paid players, and we were starting maybe 2 of them. I think that's where St. Louis has all the opportunity, is getting players healthy. Edu was one of them, so you have Edu.
Huge.
You have Edu available, but you'll have Tomas Ostrak available.
Having the guy who's making $800K able to play games is going to be huge just in the roster construction facet.
Who, by the way, is a ball handling midfielder.
Fantastic.
He can play make in the deep central midfield spots and in the attacking mid, also on the wings. That player who has been the most underutilized player in the history of St. Louis City, in my opinion. I think we have the opportunity to see him potentially at his best and fully healthy in a system that suits him.
I hear a very small yell coming somewhere from somewhere, Pedro. The Ostrak right out of the gate, honestly, could, I think if he's healthy, I would love to see him start in the midfield. Chris Durkin, they did not, for some reason, wild response from DeMay saying there was some kind of legal thing for the reason they didn't appeal the most appealable yellow card I've ever seen in my entire life. So therefore, Chris Durkin will be suspended for the first game out of this break, which is against Sporting Kansas City. I would love to see a Tomas Ostrak start in the midfield with Daniel Edelman. That would be fantastic.
Well, that's the great thing about City starting training now. They have 4 weeks. And Tomas Ostrak, healthy after 4 weeks of training. You get your friendlies in because City will have friendlies in. They'll have these matches that they'll be able to try their new guys out on. The only thing they really won't have is time after the transfer window opens. It's just 3 days between when the transfer window opens, when the first match is. There's a short amount of time there. If we sign a domestic player, that's great. He can probably slide right in. Internationals could be a bigger question. However, the injuries and the rest that our current players have been able to overcome and will be able to take this second preseason and really run with it now that they're most 99% are experienced in this system. I think that's going to cause St. Louis to be one of the most dangerous teams out of the gate. Looking
here at this transfer window and what Corey Ray might have to do, he has the roster spots available. He has the TAM available. He's at the international spots, the designated player / U22 spots. Let's say they make 4 moves.
Okay.
Because they got the roster spots to do it. Let's assume they're going to use them. Let's say they make just 4 moves. Let's say one of them's for a legitimate starter, and the other 3 or 4 role players, borderline starters, bench players, just a group of that. What position is the starter? I think we all know the answer. What position are the 3 bench, borderline role players kind of players?
Let me just say, if the starter is not a striker,
I'll be gobsmacked.
It will be a disappointing window.
That's fair.
But that's how important it is to land a striker.
Yep.
In this window. You can't run into the second half with Simon Betcher and Brendan McSorley as your only 2 strikers on the you got rid of Sergio Cordova for a reason, to free up the money, to free up that the TAM spot. You didn't re-sign Seti Toyshirt, who could have been a 9 option, but you never utilized him in that, and he had health issues. So that adds to the importance. And I think that is the reason that Sergio Cordova didn't get re-signed. We saw a little bit of progression from him. We saw some flashes of brilliance on the wing.
He had bought in.
He did buy in, and he had time to learn the system, and it took a little bit, but he got there. And so it wasn't, to me, the performance that caused us to not pick up his option and send him back to Young Boys. It was the fact that he was making that much money on a DP deal or not. That much money with that level of player, I think Corey Ray said we can do better. And I expect to do better. So that's the starting position.
Undoubtedly,
starting position striker. Now, I think to me the next most important position depends on Edu Leuven.
Okay.
If Edu Leuven is an attacking midfielder, which the right 10, I think that's where we understand DeMay values him the most, then to me the next most important position is central midfield. I still am a Conrad Vollen believer. I still think that he is has the potential to be one of the best wingers and wingbacks in Major League Soccer. He was excited from the jump to have the opportunity to be the right wing back, to have that be his position, knowing he's not going to have to fill in at midfield, not going to have to fill in at a 10.
Not going to have to play in the back 4.
Exactly. To be able to progress into the attacking third, get those box entrances. But he hasn't gelled, and I think part of that is the right 10 position. You need to have somebody that he plays well off of.
100%.
It can be Leuven, and if it is, the more time they have together, because Leuven, if he's the right 10, he's the right 10. Period.
I think they're figuring out too with Sangi. I think that one's starting there because Sangi he naturally wants to get behind the line. For him, with a guy like him, you think, he wants to get behind the line, kind of on his inside foot, going towards the goal. But it appears Sangbin is completely fine with taking the byline on the wide area, which allows Conrad to then make those cutting in runs that he likes. That's working really well. And then Edu's just a guy who's good with a ball at his foot on a football field, so it doesn't matter where he is. I don't care where. You can argue, well, you want him in certain spots because it's more useful.
See the field
but
more.
I don't care at this point. Just if he's on the field, put the ball at his foot and let him do whatever he wants to do. If he wants to drift wide, Conrad can come inside. If he wants to stay inside, Conrad will have to deal with that. If he wants to start deep and come up from the middle, which he does still like to do, I don't care. Figure out ways to just let Edward Leuven play football the way he wants to.
He's the opposite attacker to Marcel Hartl. We let Marcel Hartl run all over the field, use his own judgment. Edu's the exact same way. And what I see with Sangbin and with Edu are two vastly different profiles, and that's an asset to Yohan DeMay. Is you can tactically adjust your starting 11, whether it's Edu dropping back, Edu dropping to the bench, even, for instance, if we're that high as far as our caliber of player, and you have Sangbin who can make those deep runs or provide that width and the speed out wide. I think there's a lot of opportunity to having those different profile players in that right 10 position. But if you have Leuven up there, to me, it's central midfield. You have to find, I would prefer a 6, but I still think Daniel Edelman is the proper 6. The thing about it is Yohan DeMay hasn't been leveraging a pivot. He's leveraged 2 6s or 2 8s, however you want to refer to it as.
And they've traded off.
Exactly.
Like at first in the season, Edelman was staying back more. Durkin was pushing forward, which went against what Edelman talked about, which is like he wants to grow as an offensive player. And then they flipped the script like I think it was maybe the LAFC game where all of a sudden Durkin's staying back and Edelman's getting a little bit forward. So we need the top end striker, depth and competition at center midi and wing back. If you have that fourth one to go, where are you grabbing some more depth for City?
It's a wing back.
A second one? No, because we've got 4 spots. Striker, center midi, wing back. What are we doing with the 4th spot if you have that ability?
I think you go attacking midfield.
I think you have to. Yeah. It may be with a guy who's a little bit more of a finisher who maybe can give you that false 9, kind of like Seti would do, where he's like, I'm not a 9, I'm not a 10, I'm a 9.5. Yeah. Maybe a 9.5, 10 kind of profile.
Comfortable in the box, comfortable playing off the striker. Doesn't need to connect as much to the midfield.
Here's an idea. Maybe, this is crazy, maybe you could let Marcel Hartl breathe for 5 minutes at the end of a game and not completely lose every piece of offense you have.
That's the value in replacing an attacking midfielder. So you've got Leuven and Sangbin and Hartl up there as your primary attackers. But you can't ride Hartl to the ground every single game. And you need that quality to relieve him in that position. So it doesn't need – that's why I think is that in that 4th spot, the squad rotation type player, if it's a veteran, that's great. We don't need to have you play 60, 70 minutes per game. We need you to play 20, 30 and be dang good at those 20 or 30 minutes.
Yep, it's about really making this roster more useful. And heck, the roster gets better because then players like Simon Bescher, who we think are going to be a lot more useful coming off the bench, can then come off the bench.
Yes. Yeah, let him cook when he's good at cooking, which is running the end of the game to the ground, attacking
and pissing people off,
and pissing people off, right? Getting into the heads of people, playing the mind games. He would be the ideal striker to hold the lead at the end of a game to me.
Absolutely. That is Matt Baker. He is one of the hosts of Flyover Footy. You can check them out, at Flyover Footy on Twitter, also at Matt Baker STL. Tell everybody a little bit about Flyover Footy, how they can listen.
Yeah, Flyover Footy available wherever you get your podcasts, on YouTube. We live stream usually on Thursday nights and Sunday mornings. We do a Fallout post game the next morning. So kind of complimenting what you do on STL.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So we do the next morning, and then we do a midweek where we have some interviews. So while we're down at training with Yohan DeMay and some players, we'll offer that. So usually 2 or 3 times a week, you can find us, and always staying on top of it to complement what you guys do at STL.
Appreciate it. Of course, Santiago Beltran, one of your wonderful co-hosts, he's following Colombia around this World Cup, or else he would have been here today with us. And now, of course, Santi's Spanish language broadcaster with City. He also does a little bit of work out with myself over at the St. Louis Ambush out in St. Charles. So you can follow him online as he comes in with some Colombia news. Are you going to have him on remotely in the next Flyover Footy episode?
I've tried. I keep asking him.
He's moving too much, isn't he?
He's moving from city to city, Mexico City, Guadalajara, Miami, and if you check out his Instagram, he's ending up shirtless at the end of these games.
I did not know that.
Cheering on Colombia. Sorry, Santi, didn't mean to out you like that, but he is having the time of his life. I am going to get every opportunity between those matches to get him on again, because he is really, really having fun, boots on the ground.
Santiago Beltran's been fantastic. Tom Timmerman of the STL Post-Dispatch was in LA for the United States first game against Paraguay. He was in KC for the Argentina game to see Messi. So you can always check out his World Cup coverage over to STL today. A lot of fun here in the STL Media Core, STL City Media Core. Thank you so much for joining us today, Matt Baker. Again, everybody, if you want to watch this United States-Australia game, this is the best place to do it. We're at the Key STL, 3225 Olive Street in Midtown, just down the street from Chavis Arena. And if you're here for the game, you will be eligible to win this signed Berkey All-Star poster. So you got a little bit of time, about 20 minutes to get down before the game goes. And Matt Baker, he's going to be watching the game from that wonderful event they're putting on down at the Park, Energizer Park. City obviously doing all these things. The summer of soccer. The Ultra Club is where they got this game going. So he's got to head out there, and that means we're going to wrap up this show. Thank you so much, Mr. Baker. Thank you so much for joining us. We got to do a little bit more STL Soccer Central and Flyover Footy crossover content. And you can find us right here, STL Soccer Central. Do episodes every week once the team's actually playing again. Coming up here on STL Soccer Central this next week, though, we'll be sitting down with City Sporting Director Corey Ray. So you'll be able to find that right here on STL Sports Central on YouTube. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell button so you know whenever we go live, which, if you're a soccer fan, is live after every City game. Again, the Key STL get down here for United States versus Australia. Baker's got him winning 2-0. I got him winning 1-0. It's going to be a tough one against this Aussie defense, as they are trying to get any points that they can to all but clinch their spot in the round of 32. United States can do that as well with an outright win. Fourth point would also pretty much clinch their spot in the round of 32. But we want to finish first, control your own destiny. Right. That's the name of the game. City is also back in action. They started training this week, and you can follow both Matt Baker at Matt Baker STL, at Flyover Footy, or us right here on STL Sports Central for all your St. Louis City SC coverage. One more time for Matt Baker, I'm Matthew Rocchio. Thank you so much for joining us here on STL Sports Central. Have a great day, St. Louis, and let's go USA.
Let's go US.
There it is.